what are some values that you've seen in Americus? You've expressed this is a great place. What are some values that you've seen or some unique characteristics that define this community?
What wonderful thing about Americus is that individuals will go into a neighborhood that they may not live in, but they'll go in there and they'll work and they'll show their concern, and they'll try to do some things that need to be done. They'll help their neighbor.
Yeah.
They'll assist in any way they can as a whole. And that's just one of the check marks for, why is America so great?
Welcome to the Americus Podcast, where we're learning what it means to become a next level neighbor, creating a place we enjoy with the people we love. Today, my name is John Schroeder. It's always John Schroeder. And today I have a good friend of mine, Carl Reid III. He is a career advisor for Telamon here in town. He's also a community advocate in Americus. Carl, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you for having me. I feel honored.
That's awesome. I got caught up just a minute there with my name and things, but that was really funny. Listen, Carl, it's been really great to get a chance to know you. We moved again in sometime mid last year, and I got a chance to meet you and Summer. You guys have been such a joy. Like when I get a chance to see you out in the community, we're pretty close neighbors. You live on Lee Street. We live on Taylor Street. Man, it has been such a great time. I do know this though. They are working on Lee Street. That bridge. All right.
Goodness,
That's
yes.
right next to your house, right?
Right.
Okay. How has that affected your daily routine?
Oh man, the water main busted while they were working, and so some of the people, they were out of water, but for the most part, it's a little less traffic.
Yep. Yeah,
the
that's
road is
right.
closed, so.
That's right. You can
So it's
only
nice.
go
Yeah.
right, I think, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right or left. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think they're working on trying to build out that bridge to make it stronger for larger vehicles to come through. I think that's why they're taking so much time on it. I think.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about what the plan.
They've got
was.
some huge equipment out there.
They got some big, huge equipment.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, Carl, you know what we kind of do here on the podcast. We're learning how to neighbor well together. It's about community. It's about understanding one another. It's about learning how to people again, right? I mean, with the internet, which is great. There's so many things that are great about the internet. One of the negative pieces of that, though, is we kind of stand behind a computer and we begin to express ourselves and we begin to categorize people in ways that are unhealthy, right? And so if I see a particular political thing or anything like that, I begin to categorize you immediately, and that's not healthy for anyone. So our hope is that we would learn how to be great neighbors again, have conversations, learn from one another. And before we dive into things that are important to us, man, we need to hear from others and what's important to them. And so this is why we started the podcast. And so one of the first questions that I love to ask people here is kind of, who are you? Not just what you do. That doesn't define you. It's who you are. So tell us a little bit about Carl Reid growing up. Where were you born? Tell me a little bit about your family dynamics.
Okay. Well, I was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, but my blood runs through Americus.
Okay.
My dad was born and raised here in Americus, and his father. And so I grew up coming to Americus every summer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ever since I was little.
Yeah.
I grew up in Bloomfield, Connecticut. Once my dad graduated from college, married my mom, and they moved from Knoxville to Connecticut. And I was born and raised, I was raised in Bloomfield, Connecticut, which at the time, in the early 70s to mid 70s, was one of the most diverse communities in the United States.
Wow. What made it so diverse? Do you know?
It was small enough where the people in the diversity of the people that moved to Bloomfield, it was a lot like Americus.
Yeah.
Just a small, close-knit community that people just really enjoyed one another and really enjoyed being neighbors.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so tell me a little bit about were you did you have siblings? Tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, I have one sister.
Okay.
So it was just me and my sister.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
I don't like to claim that too much, Tom, but yes, I'm the oldest. And we had both our parents.
Okay.
Grew up with both our parents, and I played football. You know, I was the normal American kid. Played football, baseball,
Nice.
soccer. Had a good high school experience. Had a good school experience all the way around.
Wow.
But that's where I learned how to be a community advocate in Connecticut.
Wow. Okay. So you grew up with this kind of value of caring for people. Where did that come from?
It came from my mom.
Okay.
My mom raised us that you be good to people, whether they're good to you or not. It's not your responsibility to judge them, but it is your responsibility to love them despite themselves.
Wow. That's a great way of saying it, isn't it?
Yes. And
that just affected you even at a young age, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think my mother ever met a human being she didn't like. They may have made her mad. You know, they may not have done what she wanted them to do. A lot of times I didn't do what she wanted me to do, but she loved me unconditionally, and she loved everybody that she came in contact with.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you played a lot of sports. Were you thinking about getting it more into sports and kind of seeing if that could be a career at some point too? Or were you just enjoying the community and playing around and just, being a kid?
Just enjoying the community. I tell you, I wanted to be a writer.
Really?
Growing up. So I write poetry.
Okay.
So, and I've had a couple of poems published. But I grew up wanting to be a writer.
Wow.
I played sports just for the fun of it and just the camaraderie of team.
All right. So if you're that young and you're thinking about writing, what were some influences? Like, who were you reading? Where did that come from?
I was just a bookworm.
Yep.
Being little, I wasn't as extroverted as I am now. I was more introverted. I stayed to myself, did a lot of reading. Stories and poetry, and just poetry was the expression of poetry.
Yeah.
And what you had to process after reading it and having maybe to go back and read it again, just to know that you understood a point.
Yeah.
That was just exciting to me that you could put some words on paper that could really touch an individual.
Yeah. I mean, poetry, literature, I mean, that comes from the heart. That's a deep emotion. I mean, that's something at a young age. I mean, did you feel like you were able to express yourself externally too, or did you just feel like you just needed to write it on a piece of paper?
I needed to write it on a piece of paper, and I think that's where the excitement came from. That was the easiest way growing up for me to really express myself and get out my true feelings.
Yeah.
Without feeling that I was being judged or anything. It's just me, the pen and the piece of paper.
Yeah.
And we were all on one page.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you get a chance to share those with your mom or with others, or did you kind of keep it to yourself? Or
for a little while I just kept it to myself, and then as I went on to college I started sharing.
Yeah.
And I have 3 manuscripts that I've finished. I even looked at self-publishing for a little while.
Yeah.
It gets a little expensive when you're doing that.
Yeah. So all right, through middle school, high school, I mean, what were your relationships like? What were your dynamics like? Were you kind of a people person? Were you out in the crowds a lot, doing a lot of things? Kind of, what was that like for you?
Well, to let my sister tell it, I was a bully. She could never get a boyfriend. But I guess I was one that I had a lot of friends, a lot of associates. I had a lot of different friends. And so I was exposed to a lot of different cultures at an early age. And that's probably where a lot of my thought process comes in inclusion.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a lot of things to deal with that, others in certain other parts of the country did.
Yeah. So do you feel like, let's talk a little bit about that, about being able at a young age to experience different cultures and subcultures and just people, just being invited over or going over to different places and connecting. Did you feel like everyone else kind of was in the same place, or did you feel like there was like a pressure for you guys to just be with your people or just be in your culture or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely not. Not where I grew up. Bloomfield was not that kind of town. One high school, one middle school, one junior high. So no matter you were going to interact with people all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a conscious effort or if it was just something that happened to us as a community. We just took that on and embraced it.
Yeah.
And you know, if you were from Hartford or Windsor,
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut, you couldn't come into Bloomfield and bully anybody because the whole town was coming for you. Coming for you.
Yeah.
And that's how we did.
That's a great case study for, you know, other communities, even like communities like Americus or other even small communities. Like, what are those ingredients? What are those values that did so well in that? You know, and it could be just, you know, the normal competition of like, hey, when we had school, we all wanted to see each other succeed. When we're in sports, like we all came to the same games, like we wanted to win, we wanted to be together. Did you notice any particular values or ingredients that just brought on that camaraderie that you guys embraced? When you say embrace, what do you feel like you guys embraced?
We embraced the totality of humanity. Mm-hmm. To break it down, once I had a chance to process it as I grew up, we really just looked at everybody as a human being. And when you can look at an individual as a human being and not the color of the skin or texture of the hair or anything else, it's hard not to have empathy. It's hard not to feel something for that person because they're just another human being.
Yeah, that's huge. Okay, so you get out of high school. Do you know where you want to do after that? Do you know? I mean, are you going to college? Where's your career path? Where are you headed at?
Wow. I haven't thought about this in a long time, John. Yes, I was going to college, got a 4-year scholarship to my number one college.
Nice.
Which was nice. And then my girlfriend from high school became pregnant.
Okay.
So I had a choice to make, and I made the choice. Of course, it was, you know, early 80s, but I made the choice that the right thing to do for me was to get married. I'm having this child. I'm going to get married to this individual, and we're gonna raise our child together. Okay. Didn't necessarily work out that way, but that was my thought process, and I was 18 years old. So, you know, if you've worked with kids at all, you know, 18, we're still not really good at processing situations. We just act on feeling, and that's what I did. I acted on feeling. Yeah. But I have no regrets. No regrets whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay, so from that, were you still living? You said in Beaufort. Is that what you said?
Bloomfield.
Okay,
Connecticut.
you're still living there. What's your next step? Where do you find yourself?
So I go to the community college in the area.
Okay.
Become president of the Black Student Union. At first, First, I thought I wanted to be in politics.
Okay.
So I was a political science major.
Okay.
And I was doing a lot of community work, and I was a community activist for Hartford Areas Rally Together.
Okay.
Then I got a job running a campaign for a representative.
Okay. Yeah. So what kind of sparked that journey?
I wanted to make a change. I wanted to be a change maker. I saw some things that happen even in my community, because, you know, good and bad, no matter what community you're living in. Yeah. Good or bad. But I saw some things that I thought could be changed to better the community, to help each individuals become more humanitarian. And I just wanted to make a change. And I thought getting into politics was the way to do that. Yeah. Does not necessarily work that way.
Yep. All right. So okay. So you're into there, and you're trying to make your way. What kind of convinces you to kind of step out of that and maybe look at something else?
I was running a campaign for an individual that was running for mayor. Okay. Of Hartford, and so sitting down, we're having a strategy meeting. And I map out the communities we needed to go and visit. And unfortunately, that individual says, "Well, I don't need those people over there." And my thought process was, "Well, you're going to represent them, so I think you should at least hear what some of their issues may be." And you know, to be honest, I'm just going to be frank. It was a color thing, that really just tarnished my thought of how good politics could be. That I just thought politics was the end all be all, but that was a reality shock for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
About what politics really were.
Yeah. Yeah. So after that, did you kind of just have to step down from that and just say, hey, y'all write it out? Or did you kind of finish up that campaign and then just kind of find yourself in another spot?
No, I completed the campaign. We won by one vote.
Okay.
One single vote.
Okay.
And I was asked to run a campaign for a state representative, and I turned that down.
Yeah.
And I just decided I was going to go and just work and raise my son.
Yeah.
And just be a family man.
Yeah. Do you feel like, the efforts that you were able to put in with this, with this win with the mayor, do you feel like some of the hopes that you had in that campaign took place, or did you feel like, it was just kind of stable and
I think it was just, I think it was what it was. Although the individual won the race, I still think they were disconnected from a population to which they represented, a area. And I know you can't be everything to everybody. But when you take on the responsibility of a public office, I believe you at least have the responsibility to hear everybody out that is in your area that you represent. Yeah. At least hear them out. At least sit at the table with them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you kind of step away from that, focus a little bit on family. Where do you go from there?
So we have another son.
Okay.
And I'm married for 4 years, and we, as getting older and young adults, we realized this probably wasn't the best thing to do. It's rough when you're young, and I'll tell any young person this. It's when you're doing certain things, you really need to think about what the consequences could be, because sometimes I know at 18 you think you're grown. But consequences sometimes get a little bit bigger than your capacity to process, think it through, act rationally. And I'm speaking for myself, and that's what happened to me. And unfortunately we got divorced, and my sons are doing really well. My ex-wife is married now and doing well. I'm getting married, I'm doing well. And so, it all worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that. How did you, but even going through that, how did you process that when the papers are signed and you're kind of, 6 months out from that? Like, where are you at? Where's your headspace? Where are your emotions? Where's your life?
Well, that's a good question. I didn't process it well at all, John. I'm just going to be honest. I began drinking and using mind-altering substances, and became an addict.
Yeah. So you weren't an addict before. This is kind of a okay.
Yes. And not an excuse to be one, but that was the catalyst where I thought I needed to break away from reality. And I don't know how much about addiction but the process of addiction, it starts with use, and then it can turn into misuse, and then abuse, and then goes on and goes on and goes on, and that's what happened. Yeah. So for over 20 years. I was an addict. Okay. An active addict. Okay. Wound up living on the streets in Connecticut. Okay.
So you were a functioning addict for a while, just doing normally daily stuff, weekly stuff, and then it just caught up to you, and okay.
Just caught up to me, and I wound up on the streets. Going from sleeping wherever I could, until the point I began sleeping under a bush under a big church. A big Catholic church. That was my spot for about a year, where I would go and sleep, and then get up and, do what active addicts do, just try to figure out a way how you can use again. Yeah. And that's what I did for over 20 years.
How did you, this is, just for me, just being able to share this, how did you process waking up and thinking through, like, do you feel like this disease, this thing just caught you and now it's just controlling you? Or do you feel like you had a little bit of control, a little bit of self-will? Kind of where was your space as you would get up for this year?
No, I had no control. Okay. I tell the story to a lot of people that I talk to when I'm presenting to when I'm asked to speak to people who are dealing with addiction. I got to the point where my mental health was just destroyed, and it was only by the grace of God that I can sit here before you.
Yeah.
That I can be anywhere now. Since prior to 2000. Yeah. I tried to jump off a bridge onto a highway, had a seizure, fell back. This couple came by. It was 2:00 in the morning. I don't know what that couple was doing walking across that bridge, but they found me and they called 911. I took rat poisoning when a girlfriend I was living with was going away for a week to visit her mom out of town, and she forgot something. And so 2 hours later, she comes back home and finds me on the floor, passed out, called 911. I tried to hang myself. That one night, and then in the morning, my coworkers, because I was always the first one at work, they decided to come to my house, which was right around the corner from where I worked, and they saw me hanging and called 911. And the EMT came to my room that day, and that's kind of when the light switch started turning on. And he said, you were cold and blue when we got you, and so we were putting you in a bag. And he said something whispered in my ear and said, give him oxygen. And so I went to grab the tank, and my partner said, "What are you doing, man? He's cold and blue." He said, "I don't know, but I'm gonna do it." And here I am.
Wow. Yeah. Someone, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you do with that? When you say the light turns on, like where did you find yourself then?
Doing the same thing. The cycle, I did get a job. I did stop for a little while. And as soon as an adversity came up, that addictive thought process kicked right in, and I ended up back on the streets again.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. And people need to understand, I hear a lot of people say, well, they shouldn't, if they just stop, they'd be all right. It's a little bit more difficult than that. It's a disease and it's a process. And just like the process to become addicted, there's a process to find recovery.
Yeah. I think that's a really great question too. As people are, whether they're in Americus or anywhere really, is as they meet people and they want to be a help, right, to people. What are the best ways to do that? There are immediate needs, right? There are ways that we can engage, maybe some short-term things, maybe a little bit long-term things. But what were some things that just helped you, that you felt like were helpful in your recovery?
God brought people in my life that were not hindrances. Neither were they individuals that fed my active addiction.
Okay.
They came in to help. They gave me short-term help. They gave me long-term help, but they also gave me options. And of course, the choice was mine. Yeah. But they provided options without judgment. But they did not continue to feed me, like give me money or do things that a lot of families find themselves doing when they have a loved one who is lost to active addiction. Okay. That's something you cannot do. Yeah. You help them, but you don't give them resources in which they can flip that and go and use.
Yeah. So what advice do you give people? Like, let's just say, hey, I want to help. I want to be a part of this community. I want to love people. If someone approaches me and they ask for something, do you give people advice?
I give them empathy.
Yep.
And I listen. I ask some questions, particularly if they're coming to me for help. So I ask questions, and I have empathy. I try to put myself in their shoes, and of course, it's easier for me because I've lived that life. And the biggest point is, what do you want to do? I'm here to help. I'll help you any way I can. But what is it that you want to do? Yeah, because that will dictate how I help. If I can give them immediate help, provide them food, a place to stay for the night, I'm all for that. I would prefer the long-term help. Hey, let's get you some help. Let's get you to a center. Let's get you to a professional, and let's see if we can help you down this road of recovery. And I'm always here to support you.
Yeah, that's good. So if someone asked for immediate cash, let's say they said, hey, I really want to just get a meal, more than likely you would just say, well, what do you want to eat? I'll just go get that for you.
Yeah.
Or, something like that would be more helpful. Do you feel like,
helpful.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then just try to give them the resources they need. Hey, listen, on Tuesdays, they always provide this, and just try to help them kind of set up some stability in their lives if they want it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's huge. And I think that, again, that empathy is really, really important. Because we don't know, A, how people got there, right, and B, we don't recognize the control that they don't have. And so I think that's a really, really great thing. And I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your story, but also, we want to take care of our neighbors, right?
Yes.
And we got to know where the first steps are sometimes, that we don't have to be intimidated. We can engage. Right. And so I think that's very, very helpful.
And John, it was neighbors that helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that.
If I had some very empathetic, caring, human beings, brought into my life, that never gave up on me. Mm-hmm. That even though I disappointed them time and time again, they just like months, years. Yes.
Okay.
And they, I messed up a couple of times on that journey. Mm-hmm. But they were always there to just put their hand out and say, hey, you ready to get up now? You ready to dust yourself off? You ready to start this journey again? Yeah, I know it's you have to start all over again, but hey, here's the goal, right?
Yep.
And a lot of them were here in Americus.
Wow.
Wow. There were a few in Connecticut, but most.
So what brought you from Connecticut here? Like, what was that?
It was God again. I woke up one morning from underneath the bush where I slept at on the church grounds, and I started walking, and I heard, "Get on the bus or you'll die today." And I just kept walking, and I heard it again, "Get on the bus or you'll die today." And I kind of stopped for a minute and trying to process and thinking, maybe it's just something. It's probably me, all the substances I've got inside my body. And I start walking again, and the voice said very emphatically, "Get on the bus or you will die today." So as I continue walking, a car drives by me, and it was a gentleman that I hadn't seen in 4 or 5 years. We had a rift, and so we drifted apart. I noticed the car, the brakes, he hits the brakes, puts it in reverse. My knees start buckling because I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be an altercation here. And he rolls down the window, says, "Hey, listen, if I buy you a bus ticket to go see your mother and father, will you get on it today?"
Yeah.
So that's how I got back to Americus.
Wow. Let that settle, man. Okay, so you get back into Americus.
Get back into Americus.
Tell me a little bit about what that was like the first year, 2 years.
Difficult. Change. But it forced me to seriously think about what I really wanted to do with my life. Mm-hmm. Did I want to continue on with the way I was living, or did I want something better?
Yeah. Did that start on the bus ride?
No. It didn't start. I had already gotten here, had several jobs and lost them, and had some backsliding happen. Wound up at Middle Flint. Okay. Got some help. And had the people around me, church family, Reverend Larry Sims was very, very, he called me son. He was like a second father to me.
Yeah.
Just that church family was just always there for me. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people in that church helped me out, at Union Tabernacle Baptist Church. So many to call out names.
Yeah.
However, they know who they are.
Yeah.
And to this day, I just love them to death. I owe them a lot of where I am at today. I owe it to them.
Yeah. Yeah. So where was a kind of where did you find yourself being more consistent to where you're at right now?
When my head cleared and I had truly made a decision that I was not going to be an active addict anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and that what I was going to do was help others like I had gotten help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wound up doing.
Yeah.
I wound up helping others that like other people had helped me.
Yeah.
And that was so satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it really formulated my thought process about community,
Mm-hmm.
about humanity, about people, about empathy. And those are all those words that I just mentioned. They're very, very important and really deeply ingrained in my moral values.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's definitely, just kind of hearing even just parts of your story. It's, this deep concern and care for humanity, and just watching and hearing about your life in which you were trying to destroy humanity in yourself. And God was like, no, I want you to know that I care for humanity because I care for you. And then seeing these people. So, I mean, this is just it shows what you're being able to express to others as well. I mean, that's a huge piece. And I'm so thankful again that you're here. I've mentioned that to you before. I've always just really enjoyed seeing you around town. Thank you for so much again for your story. But now you are. I mean, you're an advocate. You help other people as a career advisor. So tell me a little bit about what you do now.
Right now, I'm a career advisor for Telemann Corporation, and we're funded through the National Farm Workers Jobs Program,
Okay.
By the Department of Labor, and individuals who have done agricultural work,
Okay.
any type of agricultural work, if they want to change careers, if they want to find a job, if they want training, if they want to go to college, as a career advisor, Telemann, we can help them reach their career and training goals. So many go on to certificate programs, and we pay the tuition and the books and everything that they need. And then when they graduate, they get certified. I'll help them find a job in their career of choice.
Okay. Is this like state funded or federally funded, or is this like a donate? I mean, is this like
It's a federal grant.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Federal grant money that Telemann is in 11 states.
Okay.
So it's been here in Georgia for over 35 years.
Okay.
And we have 6 offices in Georgia, but we're in 11 states.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, you're engaged and just providing help for people and connection with people. But you're also a part of the community. You get involved. You're there. Tell us a little bit about Americus. One of the first questions that when we were sitting down was just the idea of the impression of Americus. Again, you mentioned your parents are from here. Being in a small town. When you describe Americus to other people, when they say, "Tell me about Americus," how do you describe Americus?
A great place to be, a great place to live, a great place to raise children. It's been my experience, and I haven't had all good experiences. I'm not trying to say that, but when you look at the big picture, I've been exposed to some wonderful, wonderful people that are my neighbors, that live right next door, down the street, or live on the other side of town, but they're still my neighbors because they're in my community. So I tell them, Americus is a great place to be. It has so much to offer. It has so much to offer families and individuals. How many places with the population that we have can say we have a technical college and a university? And how many places can say we have so much going on community-wise that the community comes together on a regular basis? I mean, that doesn't happen everywhere. And it's some very influential people, some very dedicated people to the community that are really trying to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like that has been a kind of a new effort, or has it been long term, like this people just diving in?
I think it's been a work in progress,
Mhm.
and now we're really starting to see the fruits of
Mm.
others' labor that have come before us.
Yeah.
Um, we all know the history of, well, not all of us, but most of us know the history of the South, and most of us,
Mhm.
and a lot of us know the history of Americus within that realm. However, there were people
Mhm.
at that time, way before you and I were
Yeah.
here, that laid the foundation for what we see now:
Mhm.
community, a community working together.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have our differences. Yes, we have our own opinions. What I would love to see is my neighbors sit down at a big round table and we all just voice out. Everybody listens to everybody, and then you have a chance to respond. I think that would be a wonderful way to, resolve any issues that still may be here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that is. I mean, a place where you can be able to express, your thoughts, and again, you know, you got to recognize that not everything that you think is right, right? So that's always important. But being able to express it and allow people to hear, and then be able to hear from someone else and their expression. So, we talk again a lot about values here. Being a next level neighbor, there's values that you need to have in order to be a next level neighbor. And one of the ones that are very important to me that I've brought up several times is the value of wonderment. That you actually are truly engaged, like you have a wonder about it. It's not like I just immediately assume because I know your name and I know a little bit about you that now I'm just going to take it from there and I can go ahead and categorize you.
Mhm.
But it's this idea of I'm truly curious about your life. I want to know more about you, so that I can better understand where you're coming from. So I think that's a really great value. What are some values that you've seen in Americus? You expressed this is a great place. What are some values that you've seen, or some unique characteristics that define this community?
Um, one big thing is that uh, you don't find much judgment
Mm.
in day-to-day interaction. What you find is individuals who are genuinely concerned about another's well-being.
Hmm.
And I've lived in other places. I've lived in San Antonio, Texas. I've lived in big cities, smaller places, and you don't find that in every community,
Hmm.
particularly big ones. But even small ones like Americus, you don't find that.
Hmm.
That a lot of times, in certain places that I've lived, there's different fractions of community.
Hmm.
You stay over here on this side, don't come over here,
Yeah.
and we'll stay from over your side and you come over here.
Hmm.
What wonderful thing about Americas is that individuals will go into a
Hmm.
neighborhood that they may not live in, but they'll
Yeah.
go in there and they'll work and they'll show their concern, and they'll try to do some things that need to be done. They'll help their neighbor.
Yeah.
They'll assist in any way they can as a whole. And that's just one of the check
Mm.
marks for, why is America so great? That's why it's
Yeah.
great, because of my neighbors. It's great because of the individuals that truly care about humanity. It's about it's a great community because we do community
Mhm.
pretty well. I mean, there's some things we still have to learn,
Yeah.
but I think Americas as a whole, we do community pretty well.
That's good. That's good. And so you've probably been a part of a lot of like maybe events or programs or projects. What are some that you've been really proud to be a part of?
Um, the Americas Music Fest.
Okay.
Um, this year, the last year, it was kind of put together and fast paced. This year, had a chance to kind of plan it out.
Hmm.
And one of the major things that we all sat at the table to talk about was inclusion. You know, um, we have a diverse population here,
Hmm.
and a lot of times, some of those smaller populations get lost in the shuffle.
Hmm.
No, I don't think it's intentional. I just think they get lost. But we have to go out and say, hey, we're having this here and we're going to do something for you. What would you like? What would you like done to represent what it is that represents your culture? What can we do to show that Americus it has the diversity in that we are all willing as a community to include everybody?
Yeah.
And so that American Music Fest, that was one. There were some things that I did with co-founders of the Social Exchange, where we had Stations of the Cross. People came together to see that. We had a art showing, the murals that are on Fenn Street. People came out when the unveiling of those. Yeah.
I do. It's amazing that, the arts do a really great job at bringing people together. Music, I mean, all of that. There's a sense that just kind of everybody can gravitate to,
Absolutely.
So for example, it might be, let's just say an old hymn like Amazing Grace. You could say that in 14 different languages and everybody knows that chord progression.
Yes.
And so we can all, even if it's not in our language, we know kind of what's going on and we feel that. And we're just like, all right, we're all here trying to do the same thing. So things like music, I think, are really great traction points. It's kind of what pulls people together. And so I want to continue to do that. Let me ask you, as far as communication is concerned, I mean, there's so many forms of communication. I think that's one of the most difficult pieces to any small town or any large project is who are you supposed to talk to? How do you get it out? Who's going to go do it? Have you found anything that's been highly effective, or do you feel like there's still some things that we need to figure out when it comes to communication?
I think we do a pretty good job of it. It's really about people who are involved in the actual project, making the decision to get out there and ensure that everybody that they know, that knows them, that their friend knows, that their friend knows what's going on. And that means a little bit of beating the pavement a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe going out somewhere where you don't normally go on a daily basis or a regular basis in the community. Seeing a individual that, you just pass and you might know his face, or she might know your face, and you say, hey, this is going on. Are you going to be there? Yeah. Those types of things. And that's important when you're talking about a small town like this, because, the people that that I may not know, I'm connected to them through you, because you and I are friends.
Yeah.
I thank you, and I know many of the listeners, they wouldn't know, but when you and your wife invited us, Summer and I, to have dinner with you, that was just, and it was so enjoyable, and it was just so cool, and we just really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, like I said, you are, man, you're so personable, you're so relational. And I think that continuing this progression of, hey, let's continue to open up our doors, have dinners, let's get out there, meet people where they're at, kind of get a chance to hear their story. And again, just coming into this town, I mean, I'm still learning like what the traditions are, what kind of the cultural framework is. Some of it's healthy, like you said, some of it's unhealthy. We're still working through some of those things. What do you think, some things in this city, in this county, that are traditions that are just healthy, that are just, you just love being a part of it, being,
There are a lot of things. But one, again, is being able to walk down the street and see someone just about every step I take that I know. That's wonderful. I might not have seen them for 2 weeks, but I go to the sandwich shop and there Bob is. And hey, Bob, I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. How you doing, man? How's family? And just getting just having that communication and that connection with another human being. And that is concerned about your well-being. You're concerned about their well-being and their families. You sit maybe for 15, 20 minutes and you didn't mean to, but it turns into that, because you're just genuinely happy to see one another.
Yeah. That's good. One of the things I've really enjoyed, I don't know if they do it every year. I don't know if they're doing it this year, but even like the tour of homes, things like that, it's
Mhm.
people just get a chance to come in and get to hear a little bit of the history, just building on top of these things, I think are really, really important.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, we also talk a little bit about, the issues in Americus as we're, sitting down, having coffee or having dinner. And we kind of know the big overarching things like education's obviously really, really important. We want to see that. We want to see crime rate go down. We want to see poverty go down. We want to deal with our social issues, whatever those are. And I think too, it just, like you said, it just takes time. I can't remember who said it. I think it was off of a movie, but the first thing that you need to do to get out of a hole is to stop digging.
I've heard that saying.
Right?
I can't remember who said it.
It's such a great thing of like, okay, well, we've got some issues, but we gotta stop digging first, right?
Right.
So what are some social changes or needs that you have that you observe that we need to see within our community?
Communication.
Okay.
And when I say communication, I mean something very specific. Talk about the hard issues. Let's stop fighting. Let's stop arguing over things that aren't going to matter in the next 10, 15, 20 years. They're not going to matter whether our children are doing well or not. But what it will do is it will build up community. I learned something one day I'd like to share. Was having a conversation with a group of guys, and we were talking, and it was right around the time when they were starting to tear down statues and other things, and so of course everybody got really heated. The situation in the nation was heated, and I forgot, some individual said, "Oh, well, they should tear that statue down," and another gentleman says, "Well, wait a minute. I fly the flag. But Carl is my best friend, one of my best friends. I trust him the most." And so I wanted to hear a little bit more about that. And he made me understand something that I never understood. Okay, I have some things, just because of my background, who I am, my culture, that are very symbolic to me. And they're not right or wrong. They're just very symbolic to me, and it's in my grain. It runs through my blood. So why should I be upset when there's something that I may not see as a positive, but for that individual that grew up, that has that culture, that it runs through their blood? Why can't I listen to what they have to say about it? And why can't we sit down and come to agree to disagree and leave it alone, or just say, I never thought about that. Well, my response was, I never thought about it that way. If it, in other words, if we would just stop for a minute and just listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes listening. You don't have to agree, but stop thinking while people are talking. Just truly do some active listening.
Yeah.
And sometimes you figure out within your own self, well, that was pretty stupid for me to be offended over such a small thing, over something that really doesn't make much of a difference in the grand scheme of life anyway.
Yeah. But there is something there that there's something that you're thinking, and again, an experience that you've had that creates this opportunity for you to say, hey, listen, I feel like where that conversation is going is not something that I value, but you still give space for that. And I think people need to know what that is, because we don't do well. It's immediately, like I said, all right, now I have to formulate an argument about what you're saying by the time you get finished, instead of actually listening. Do you have any response? Like, how do you do that? How do you do that?
Don't take it personal. I don't take it personal. I separate myself from the individual, because it's easier to get upset with another human being than it is to get upset with words. And just listen to the words. Sometimes I call it closing my mind's eye. Stop looking at the individual and just listen to the words, and hear what they're saying. I mean, actually listen to what it is their argument is, and then formulate whatever my response is going to be. Do that after I've heard everything that individual has to say.
Yeah.
And why do we get so offended so easily?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to just learn that we're all human beings. We say things we shouldn't. We do things we shouldn't. We make mistakes. We think things we shouldn't. That's all part of being a human.
Yeah.
And that's why we have Christ,
Yeah.
because we're not always going to do the right thing, right? But that's why he came.
Yes.
And so if we could extend a little grace to each other, because we see each other every day. We're interacting with one another every day, and we can't just give a little grace to one another.
Yeah. There's so many just right there that people just need to wrestle with. It's so hard because there's an expectation that I know everything, or at least I know enough of what I'm about to say, especially if I'm looking at the next, the next media thing that they shell out. Within 2 days, someone has read an article, become an expert, and now have shared that article with the whole world saying, this is where I stand. I'm like, you're not a medical professional. It's okay. Like, share, but like, you're coming at it as I know all things. But then, like you said, there's this thing that says, I'm right, and I have to convince you that I'm right to be okay. Because if you don't think how I think, then I'm not okay. And there's a piece of us that says, well, that may be because I'm limited. It may be because I'm broken. It may be because we're both broken. And again, that's a hard sell to really accept, right? I mean, you don't need a savior if you don't think you need saving, right? So I think that those conversations need to be had more. And even with the words, like you said, every word should matter to us. So if, for example, if someone says the word love or community, or before I begin to say, well, this is what I think, I don't even know what you mean by those words. So my first reaction shouldn't be to try to establish maybe another point, but to even just dive a little bit deeper into what you just said so that I would be able to better understand it. Right. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Active listening, communicating. And there's been a few times I've tried to do this with my wife. It's not been successful. Right.
Happens to all of us.
Right. Man, you really know, you learn, right? You learn what to do and what not to do. But there's been a few times where even when there's an argument and there's a disagreement, that I spend time trying to articulate her side of the argument in such a way that it would make her argument better. And I think if we did that, it might help us in our communication to say, hey, I hear what you said. And if I were to make that argument, I would add this and this and this, because I think it actually makes your argument better. I think what that does is allow us to understand the person, to fight for the person, and then say, now I'm going to disagree with that argument, but at least I understood it. And then I repeated it to you. So if I say, hey, is this what you're saying? And they say, that's not what I'm saying. Then you have to ask them again. Then what did you mean? Right. How hard is that? But we don't want to do that. And so I think that we need to do that more and more. So that's, I mean, I think it's going to help with things like education and crime and poverty, because what we're doing is we're giving time to share so that we say, hey, what do you actually need from us? Right. When it comes to even education. So, to
that point, I'm sorry.
Please do.
But to that point, I was at some planning meeting and someone made the remark, well, we need to help them. And my question was, well, what do we need? What do we know about what they need? Because, even the best intentioned people, we think, okay, I know what I'm going to go help this individual. I know what they need, and I'm going to get it for them. And you could be 100% off of what they need. Yeah. Because no one's asking. And that's, and I keep saying, and that's one of my my favorite words is empathy, because it reminds me, and I say it a lot because it reminds me that sometimes I need to take my shoes off, put your shoes on,
Yeah.
and kind of walk that path that you're walking with you, so I can understand much better what's going on.
Yep. Yep. Well, it's definitely something that we need to practice more and more. So okay, let's just say, we got someone who's listening in who wants to do that better. Let's just say they've had a few conversations, or maybe this is their first conversation with someone, and they're starting to feel that tension. What are some things that you would say is, hey, just be mindful of this, be remembering, remember this?
Just remember that most of our own opinions, individual opinions, have been shaped by some of the things that we've gone through. Mm-hmm. And so in a lot of things that we've gone through, although they may be the same, we reacted to them differently. Mm-hmm. The environment was different. So that we can remind ourselves to show the empathy. So we can remind ourselves to be listeners, to be good, active listeners.
Yeah.
Because I would think the goal, or at least in any conversation I have, the goal is can we both leave this table with at least some compassion for the other's views. Mm-hmm. We don't have to agree, right? Yeah. I mean, we're not always going to agree.
Yeah. But
can I have enough compassion to understand that, okay, your experience might have been very different than my experience. Mm-hmm. And what our discussion and the opinions that we're formulating here comes from those experiences. Mm-hmm. And maybe we need to say, let's take a time out. You know what? How was it when you were growing up?
Yeah.
What was it like? How did you feel? Mm-hmm. What are you feeling right now?
Yeah.
And that brings everybody's level down.
Yeah.
Right. And now we can have a conversation like you and I are having this conversation right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think too that, some people are still a little intimidated by having just conversations, because what you're asking them to do is not just to be transparent, but to be vulnerable. And that doesn't put anybody in a safe spot, because every time they've been vulnerable, they've probably been hurt. And so they're trying to not experience that as well. And so as we're having those conversations, we need to be a person who is trustworthy enough to say, hey, when you're vulnerable, I'm not going to attack you.
Yes. Yeah. And just know that there are going to be people out there that when you're vulnerable, they are going to attack you.
Yeah.
And just be prepared for that. And don't let it get you to the point where you group all of humanity that way.
That's good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Because there's so many different views. There's so many different people. I mean, there's billions of people. So, I mean, realistically, there could be billions of opinions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It just so happens, our minds are just they're limited in some points. And so a lot of the opinions are the same, and you just want to get and pick up with the people that have the same opinions that you have. But are you really learning anything?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I think that, again, as even as we're looking at the future of Americus and what we want to see for this great community, I mean, there are some things, I'm hearing some buzz, man. People are getting excited about Americus. There's some potential for some really great jobs and people to come in. As people are, considering, and businesses are considering coming in, what are some things that we need to be mindful of as a community? So again, I've asked the question, what do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? And what's at least one thing that we should never stop doing as a community as people come in, and we want to see this. Again, it's not necessarily about numbers and growth, but it's about thriving, right? We all want to thrive.
Absolutely.
Maybe some people love 15,000 people, and that's great, but we want to make sure that it's thriving, right?
Right.
And preparing for whatever that is. So what are your thoughts on either values that need to be challenged or, things that need to be created for people to thrive in this next 10 years?
To be honest with you, in conversations that I've had, even when people don't agree, even when they stand on opposite ends of an argument, the values they still have the same values. And I think that's one great thing about our community is that neighbor, helping each other, being concerned for one another, wanting our community to thrive. I think those are core values of everybody who lives here in Americus. We all want the same thing. We may have different opinions of how to get there, but that value that value is important because we pass that on to our kids. Yeah, and they pass it on to their kids. And hopefully, what happens is that it goes out to the people that are just passing through, and they remember that, hey, when we went to Americus, remember those people that we didn't know? They just walked up to us and gave us directions and told us all these great places to eat, and we went to each and every one of them, and boy, did we have a time there. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. Well, you have a lot of conversations with a lot of different people. Some people have come, some people have left. Is there anything that you've noticed about people that have left that they felt were a concern for the community?
Yes. I know a number of people said there's just not enough industry here. Mm-hmm. And, and that happens when you're a smaller town. Of course, you're not always going to get the IBMs or the big car manufacturers to come here. Yeah. However, there are some things that we can do at the city level. There are some things we can do at the community level to kind of ensure that a business owner or a company, they'll at least take a look at Americus. Mm-hmm. We can make sure that there are things in our community for people to do. Yeah. We can make sure that our community is safe. We need to talk about and celebrate those individuals that do great things in our community every single day. Yeah. I haven't heard anybody talk about Chief Scott, who is, he's the chief of police of this small little city. Mm-hmm. However, he is the chair of the national organization that he's part of. That's for the police officers. Not only that, the American Police Department has a national certification that not even a lot of the big cities have. And we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate that we have a chief of police that is willing to go all out, that is willing to do the work to try to make this community better and safer. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Highlighting the areas in which we're excelling really well, because what you celebrate, you replicate. I mean, it just is what it is, Exactly. And as the community continues to value the people here, and just know, I mean, there's more than one. And I think that, and the reality is that they can be a part of that too. Like you said, there's two colleges here. It would be really great for them, as they're just kind of here, is to see, like, this is a city to invest in. It's a city to come and, start a business, or at least, continue to help businesses thrive here. So with their skills and talents.
And I know with my job, South Georgia Tech is just a wonderful community partner. Mm-hmm. And they're always a lot of times they're in the background. But they're always trying to see what they can offer to the community, since they're here, they're part of the community. Yeah. Institutions that are part of the community, there should feel there's a responsibility for them to be part of the community, and that means actively getting students and faculty members and staff to come in and participate.
Yeah, that's huge. So you've used the word community inclusion. What would that look like? What would a perfect scenario, in a sense, what would that look like to you?
Is there perfection when we're talking about
but we're talking about vision, beings, right? So we're talking about what we want to see. We're not saying it's going to be there.
Okay. So we're gonna hypothesize.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. Let's do it.
All right. Well, the perfect community would be that individuals, we're all concerned for each other, meaning that, like when I grew up in Bloomfield, if Mrs. Duncan saw me doing something that she knows Mrs. Reid would not allow Carl to do, Mrs. Duncan would come out of her house. She would grab Carl by the collar, she might whoop him because Miss Reed said, if you see him doing something, spank him on his butt. But she's bringing me to Mrs. Reed and saying, this is what I found Carl doing. Mm-hmm. And instead of Mrs. Reed arguing with the lady, why you put your hands on my child? We're not talking about abuse. We're just talking about having investment in the community. Mm-hmm. She says, well, thank you, Mrs. Duncan.
That's right.
I will take care of this. You won't you won't see this problem again. Mm-hmm. And she never did.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and I don't know if it's just the sign of the times or, if it's, I mean, I guess we could say all kinds of things. But the perfect community would be a community where the whole village is raising every single child within it.
Yeah.
And that means then that every parent is having a discussion, an interaction, communication, some type of relationship building with their neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah.
With other people in the community.
Yeah, that's good. I read a book that's called Parenting Beyond Your Capacity. And it was the idea of, creating that village where, your kids will know that, hey, look, I might not even go talk to my mom right now about that, but I know I'm going to go talk to this guy because you've set them up to be able to talk to them. Mm-hmm. And what they're going to tell them is, hey, go tell your mom and dad.
Absolutely.
It's all right. Like they got you. They love you. And I think that's an amazing thing. And we could start. The great thing is the way that you've pushed that or shared that is it's on an individual level too. You're not talking about something that takes a long time. It's just, hey, look, start talking to your kids and letting them know, hey, I'm going to build a coalition of people that are around me that love you. And they're going to be looking out for you just as much as I look out for you. And because we want the best for you. So I think those are really amazing. I obviously, again, we're talking about, what we want to see, but even at an organizational level, there's so many organizations in Americus, and that is a good thing, but sometimes it also can be a negative thing because you're also talking about fighting for funding and trying to get communication and then trying to do this project. It's like, well, we're doing this on Tuesday and then you're doing this on Thursday and, we're trying to get the same people. So what are some obstacles that we can be aware of as a community to kind of get better at doing more things together, syncing up?
Well, that's a good question. And there are those discussions. You have organizations such as the Heart of Sumter, the Chamber of Commerce, other organizations around that are talking about, okay, we're all doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. How can we come together and collaborate so that we're just filling in gaps and not overlapping one another to fight for that funding? How can we work together you can help me get the funding here, I can help you get the funding here. I do this, you do that part, and let's work together as a collaborative.
Yeah.
So those discussions are going on. Yeah. Because I'm part of them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be really healthy and really good. And I think even as a community, as a citizen shareholder, being able to know that A, those conversations are happening, and B, being able to express those clearly, I think with someone like me. So for example, I don't know if this happens because I haven't gone to a city meeting in a while. So forgive me for not, showing up and being there. But one of the things that I think would be helpful is, okay, so we've got funding for certain projects that are happening in the city. And so I'm like, man, I wish they would work on this road, right? And it's in the works, but it's probably a year and a half, 2 years down. There's other things that are happening that need to happen first. As a citizen, I don't know what those three things are. All I know is that this road is still not being fixed. And so that communication will also be helpful to say, hey, listen, here's the top 3 things we're doing in the next 6 months. So just know it's on the list, but we're doing these things. And that kind of settles me to say, well, I'm not going to, which I don't do this anyway, but there's no reason to get on Facebook and start blasting about this city street because you know that things are happening and it's for the whole community. Hey, it's coming. So the better that we can do that where we're not overlapping and we're just communicating, I think is just going to be truly helpful. And the great thing is, like you said, it just takes time because there's a lot of ships that need to be kind of moved, big rudders and all that kind of stuff. So okay, well, we're kind of getting to this place where I would love to spend a little bit more time just getting a chance to know you. So we have these, what we call rapid fire questions. So these questions are literally just set up for us to get a chance to get to know Carl just a little bit more on an intimate level, just have a little bit of fun. And so here goes a few things. One is, I would love to know, what is your favorite poem that you have written?
Ooh, John, put me on the spot.
I know,
on that
right?
one. That can't be rapid fire.
That's not rapid fire?
That's that.
Oh, you got him. You got him.
My response, I'm dead now.
Is that what this poem's called? I'm dead now.
The favorite poem,
Yeah.
I have a few,
Okay.
but I would.
What's your top three?
Top three.
Yeah.
Orange Moon,
Okay.
which talks about finding your partner, finding your spiritual partner, finding that one, and they're like this beautiful, gorgeous moon,
Wow.
in the sky. That would be one. I always make up stuff about Tammy. One day I'll share that one with you.
Okay.
That talks about the how people can get so offended so easily, and when you look at it and you put it on paper, how funny and silly it sounds. And we do that as human beings all the time. But if you really took a step back, it's really silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to laugh at yourself. Those I would have to say would be my.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I threw you on the spot.
Yeah, you threw me on the spot with that one.
I did. All right. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you want to go?
Mars.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, you said the world.
Well, yeah,
I'm outside the world. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
that's fine.
sorry. So you want me to stay inside?
Yeah, let's stay inside
Earth.
the planet.
Okay. I would love to see India.
Okay. Any particular reason, or just
to experience the culture, because it's so different than what I'm used to, that I've been exposed to, and I have not been exposed to much in terms of their culture, and I think it would just be such a learning experience.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Are you a morning person, or are you a night person? Are you staying up late, or are you getting up in the morning?
I do both, but I am not a morning person. When I get up early, I'm grumpy.
Yep.
I don't want to talk to anybody.
Come on.
I don't want to hear good morning until I've had my cup of coffee.
Okay. All right.
But I'm an evening night person. Once 12 o'clock hits,
you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm hitting it hard from 12 noon to time I go to bed.
I love it. Now, with your coffee, do you put anything in it?
Just sugar.
All right. I love it. All right. This is, are you a dog or cat person? Are you kind of an animal person?
I am an animal person. We've got 4 dogs.
Okay.
2 cats, 1 bird.
Okay.
So
how do they all show up at your house?
Like I feel about humanity.
Yeah, just taking them in.
Taking them all in, diversity, inclusion.
I love it. What's your favorite way to unwind or just relax?
Sit in front of the TV with Summer.
Yeah.
Watching a movie. We'll some weekends we'll binge watch some of our favorite shows on Netflix.
Nice.
And we'll sit there all day and all evening.
Yeah. What's a favorite show that you would binge watch? You need to catch up on right now.
Nurse Ratched, American Horror Stories. We're weird people.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting. It is.
It is.
All right. Do you have a favorite inspirational quote or a motto or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Not. I have many.
Yeah.
And it's always dependent upon
what the situation
is.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. All right. What was the worst job that you ever had?
Well, that's a good question, John, because I loved just about every job that I.
Okay.
I worked when I moved to San Antonio, Texas. I worked at a Circle K
Okay.
as a cashier, clerk, cleanup guy. I hated that job. I
Yeah.
did. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There it is. Hey. Right. What's your favorite season?
Fall.
Fall. Any particular reason?
Not too cold,
Mm-hmm.
not too hot. And of course I grew up in New England, so
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of the foliage is just every time autumn comes, that's the first thing, that image I have in my mind is being in the woods in Connecticut and just looking at the beauty of all the colors.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. One more. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
It just has to be one.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I would like to sit down with a few to hear their Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
Countee Cullen, who was a poet during the Harlem Renaissance. Hitler, just to hear what his thought process was. Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And Gandhi. Imagine be able to sit at a table with such a diverse thought process and hearing them share their views, their experiences. You would have to come away. Your mind would have to be enriched in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Whether you agreed with what they did or not.
Yeah.
And some people will probably get upset. He said Hitler. Well, I really like to know what makes a human being tick.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, and it's great because it is. I mean, that's even diverse in its, theological implications and all of those types of things. I mean, it's really, really an amazing thing. Well, Carl, like I said, you're an amazing person to talk to.
Oh, thank you.
I love our conversations. I look forward to having more of our conversations,
Absolutely.
off the podcast. And, maybe in another year or two, we can kind of see where we're at, and love to have you back on and kind of see, where Americus is still going.
Definitely.
Things like that. So,
do I get a chance to ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
What does missional community mean to you? I've been looking at that ever since I walked in.
There. Yep. Yeah. So missional community, it's a family. It's a spiritual family of servant missionaries, right, who are sent by God to make disciples that make disciples. So the idea is that it's a group of people that are in genuine relationship with God and others, and they are being the kingdom of God for others as they are together. And so while they're in a particular, maybe they're on a Sunday morning service, they're spending time together or worshiping, but that's not all. That's where they're at. They're at the grocery store. They're spending time together. They're at the sports events together. And they're just a community of people that are on the same mission to be a spiritual family to one another and bring people into that kingdom of God. And so the biggest piece would be John 13:35, where Jesus says, "And they will know that you're my disciples by your love for one another." Well, how are they going to see you if you're just at a church service on a Sunday morning? Right. You're out and about all the time, together as much as you can. So it's about life on life, and so it's been a heartbeat of mine for a long time.
I love it.
So, and I will say this, as an evangelist, as someone who loves to knock on a door, one of the things that I really struggled with, honestly, was I would share about the kingdom of God. And then if someone really wanted to take their step into that, I wouldn't know where to bring them, because I would feel as if, I don't know if this church is going to be for them. I don't know if my church is going to be for them. But so with that, I was like, I want to be a part of a kingdom that I want to invite people into. And so it just goes beyond just sharing your faith. It's bringing people into community. So,
right. And how could you not have empathy and love in that?
Yeah,
type of
absolutely. Love it. Thank you so much, Carl. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a good evening.
All right. We're good, man. Great on time. Great on everything. Do me a favor. Go ahead and fill